All on my car. Good afternoon again, brethren. I will be the first of two. We will have two today, so I'll try to. Chris, Coach Wilkes will be up. I'll set the table, or maybe I'll unset the table. Who knows? But it's an eventful week, huh? Even for us, but especially for, some fellow humans in the world. It's really, really, really eventful. It's crazy. It's a mad, 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 mad world. But one of the things that, and I think we were here last Sabbath maybe anticipating that something was in the offing, because these saber rattling and this stuff had been going on for a while. And I guess maybe we thought maybe it could or maybe it wouldn't. I don't know, but it's crazy. I know I heard an interview with and I don't know who she was. I heard part of an interview. Let me rephrase that. It said a reality star from the Ukraine, young woman, who obviously still has his family there, and I felt for her. And when she got to one point, and she said, "Well, we didn't know this was going to happen. We didn't, they weren't prepared, because her family wasn't prepared because they didn't know this was going to." And I thought, well, that's not exactly true. I mean, you had to know that there was some possibility that was, but again, it doesn't take away from the atrocities and the situation is it's just an eventful week is an understatement. But for especially, I guess, us on the outside looking in, however far on the outside we might be, it's a focus adjuster, or at least that's for me personally. It's a focus adjuster, but not because everything's out of focus, or you don't understand, or you don't think things like this can happen in our world. But it never fails, it seems, when stuff like this does happen. What is important, what's really important, especially when you see the plight of other people, what's really important is sharpened, isn't it? You hone in on things that, in this whole big sweeping saga of life that we have, there's only a few things that are really, when it comes down to survival, then focus gets adjusted, doesn't it? It gets sharpened on what is really actually, we sweat the small stuff, as the old saying is. So what's important does get brought into sharper focus, and not just especially for the people that are in the midst of it, but like I said, even from the outside looking in, you start taking stock your own self and thinking, if that were me, or if that is me in the future. We just don't know, do we? We do, but we don't. Exactly. So, and it sharpens your focus, and again, not because of immediate peril here, necessarily, but to realize anew how quickly things could get sideways. I mean, it just, but you don't. And then you see it, and it's like, man, how fast things can just go off the rails. It's amazing. It's a fresh realization, is what it is, of how many ways we are vulnerable. And it's not just Ukraine. It's not just nations in that area, countries in that area. We're all vulnerable. And we get reminded of that. And we hear the talking heads, and the people want to ask questions about, well, what does this mean for us, or what could it mean for us, or what could if we do this and they do that, well, we are vulnerable, and we have, these places where, and you think, well, what is our strengths? And that's a shorter list, I guess, but we realize how many ways that we're vulnerable. And I mean we as a nation, and we as a human race. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this human race together, aren't we? Whether we are eventually looking at this thing in the rear view, because this is how my mind works. You think, well, you see it, you see how atrocious it is, and you think, well, is it leading somewhere? Is this a Pandora's box that's been opened? Or will we be looking at it in the rear view in a few weeks, months, years, whatever, as a spike? I don't think it's going to be a blip, because and it depends on where you are, brethren. Let's be real as to how this is interpreted and how it feels. We're kind of on the outside looking in, and we wonder, is it going to be a spike on the radar in the future in the rearview mirror, or if it still gets even crazier, because we could go home this evening or wake up tomorrow and something else even crazier has happened. You know what I mean? Or more craziness. I don't know that it could get much crazier than what we've already been seeing, but it's the evaluating and the learning that takes place, or should be taking place. It's the evaluating and the learning that is important. I think Putin, however you want to say this madman's name, there's some names we'd like to give him and probably have, but I think Putin has settled much of the debate on what he's capable of, what he's willing to do. I don't know if there's anything that he's not willing to do, but I do think he has settled some of the debate about that. Not all of it, because I haven't heard anything since probably 9-something this morning, maybe. I had the TV on for just a minute just to see if there was anything different than what I'd already been hearing in the last couple of days. But again, I don't think he's fully revealed himself, because as of this morning, he still hadn't done, in my opinion, what they can do, even to take the capital of Kyiv, because they could have done, the bombardment could have been much stronger. We know that. So I don't know what that means. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm saying that we don't even know what we might see as of yet to come. I'm not sure what that strategy is really, or what kind of. I don't want to say game, because again, if you're a citizen of Ukraine, it's far from a game. It's not. It's real. And I applaud the president and for sticking around and a little bit of his defiance. But again, I'm not sure what that strategy is, why they haven't moved harder. But there is some. That's not taking anything away from the moxie of the people of Ukraine, which has been a little bit surprising. Probably shouldn't have been. You think about those defiant ones that were protecting at Snake Island. It's not a great story, because it didn't end all that well. But yeah, that you have to admire. You have to admire those people. From those to, I heard about another young man that blew himself up on a bridge to interrupt Russian advance. So they're committed. A lot of them are, and it doesn't take anything away from their moxie, their willingness to. Yeah, it's crazy. But amongst all of this is the concern about disinformation. That's one of the things that I think about, and even had some conversation yesterday about the disinformation and where we get things from. And we know that social media is a big thing. I haven't been on social media to try to follow the things that are going on over there, but you just have to know. You even see it on the news stories. You're watching stuff and you think, hey, I don't know if that's, there's these claims that a lot of the footage, not a lot, but some of the footage that's been shown isn't really even from Ukraine. It's old footage. And so you have to, it's that walk that we do in anything, trying to find the truth of a matter and feel like you're getting the best information. But I do worry about that a little bit, the disinformation that's out there, especially amongst young people. It seems obvious that, at least depending on where you're at in Russia, you're getting a much different scenario than what we're seeing on our television sets. Painting a different picture, which, you could imagine that would take place. So, but it's possible everywhere, right? The disinformation. I meant to follow up on it, but I kind of ran out of time. There was a theory that part of the reason why this madman is doing kind of some of the things he's doing is because he's has some kind of terminal illness, and he doesn't care. So he's going out. He's going to take as much as he can with him. Doesn't matter. What do I care? I don't think he cares anyway. If he thought he's going to live to be 1,000 years old, he'd still probably be doing some of the same silly stuff. But anyway, and then I turned on my computer this morning, and there was a little thing on my news feed that said that some of the experts are now starting to question something about a serious illness, Putin and a serious illness, and I clicked on it, and my computer went crazy. I thought, okay, not just really, but I didn't get to. I thought, well, I had to end up shutting my computer down because it froze, and I thought, well, maybe I wasn't supposed to read that story, but and when I had the news on for the TV for the 30 minutes or so that I had it on, it didn't say anything about that. So I don't know how much, but that just, is that misinformation? Is that, I said disinformation earlier. I misphrased that. It should be misinformation. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what he's up to, except for he's on an ego trip. What is real? What is real, though, and you're not going to see it you're not going to hear it from the talking heads on any of the news outlets or networks. No matter how what is real is no matter how these current events play out. It's, in my mind, regardless of how it plays out, it's paving the road, isn't it? It's just another brick in the wall, as the old Pink Floyd song. Just another brick in the wall. It's another yellow brick. And we're not going to see the wizard, but you know what I mean. It's paving the road. It's setting a stage. I think it's very likely that our responses are being evaluated, not just by him, but other people who may have bad intentions. I said last time I was here, I think it was last week, that I am weary of this America is America, well, how always has been, always will be. We recover from anything. We're Americans. We do this, we do that. Getting weary of that because we know, brethren, to get where we say that we want to go, something has to give. Something has to give. And when something gives, it doesn't always feel nice, does it? It doesn't feel good. Change, especially what we consider bad change, or it's not always comfortable. We have been blessed. We have been blessed. I say we have been blessed. We are blessed still. We are blessed still and may have blessings in our future, but we know that to get where we say we want to go, things have to morph. Things have to change. My family, I say we have been blessed and we're blessed still. And I can say that because my family isn't held up in a subway tunnel today. I'm not holding my grandbabies wondering, how do I get out of this? What's going to happen? They're calling it a bomb shelter, but I mean, we know that, I can't. Yeah, it's terrible. The person whose car, I heard it mentioned back here earlier, the person whose car, that is the craziest looking video. I mean, I don't know who, because I first saw it without any sound. I thought, what? I mean, is the person driving this tank, are they drunk or what? And then it just veers over and runs over. This car is moving. And the tank just drives up on the car. No care, no concern for who's in the car, the life that's, I think the person survived, but it's crazy. It's crazy. And this person whose car was destroyed, I don't think could have imagined or envisioned a few days before that this is the turn my life's going to take. Could have been killed I thought, how do you survive a tank going over the top of your car? Angels of mercy? I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. And and I read where I guess the Russian military has a mobile crematorium where they can evaporate the soldiers that get killed in the attacks. It's what planning, and I don't know. We all know it's crazy, and I could stand up here all day, and we're not going to think it's any crazier. But yeah, I say all that to say that we have been blessed. We are blessed still because those things aren't happening now, right here. But we can't imagine. We can't envision, right? And I'm not, again, no fear-mongering. It's taking notes. It's taking notes. It's preparation. Because it's setting a stage. It's paving. I don't know where these particular events are going. Maybe, a year from now we're talking about something else, and you remember when, crazy Putin interrupted or invaded Ukraine. I don't know. But it's another stepping stone. Taking notes, preparation. Having a few provisions, yes. But I'm talking about the preparation of the heart and the mind, which are interchangeable to me when it comes to what we read in Scripture. But for who has known the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? We're asked in 1 Corinthians 2:16. Who has known the mind of the Lord as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. We have the mind of Christ. So when we're taking notes, when we're evaluating, and we're just seeing, what difference does it make that we have the mind of Christ versus the mind of just a human? Because we see that it's learning, right? We see that it's taking notes and preparing our hearts and minds. And I think he does this for us. I'm not saying for one instant that he caused this to happen to the people of Ukraine so we could, but it is happening. So the best thing that we can do is take it to heart, take it to our minds, and let it prepare us, let it teach us, right? None of us believe that Jesus, our Lord, is unaware of the plight of those people in Ukraine, or that he doesn't know the end from the beginning. You don't hear it. You don't hear that. You don't hear Christ knows the end from the beginning. Christ knows the plight of the people in the Ukraine. You don't hear that on CNN or Fox News, for that matter. Now, in fairness, that's not what we expect, is it? We don't turn on the news to hear that. We don't want, I don't know that we don't want, but we would be shocked if we heard one of the broadcasters, what if we turned on the TV, turned on a newscast, and somebody's quoting Amos 4:12. Therefore, this is what I will do to you, Israel. And because I will do this to you, Israel, prepare to meet your God. Wow. Could you imagine? I would probably drop my coffee cup. And I'm not saying that this is judgment on the people of Ukraine. I'm just using a theoretical situation. Could you imagine? It's that old, I've heard Loretta Lynn saying it, it's maybe not hers, but everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Yeah, there was a conversation this week about the angst. About the angst a situation like this might stir in young people, especially not middle schoolers, because let's face it, they're oblivious. You would never know anything was going on anywhere by the way these kids act. They don't. I won't say they don't know, but they're. And that's not me in middle school. Okay, another war. Russia's showing their, so whatever. But young adults especially, the angst and how and where they get their information and how they process it, what they see versus me, 55-year-old man. What is the perception? And I don't know that I have a good answer, but for me, when you think about that anxiousness, when you see stuff like this happening in the world, and imagining or thinking about where it could go. Again, when you're as far down the road as I am, you think about it a little bit differently than obviously if you were a teenager or you were 20-something or just starting a family or whatever. I know that. But for me, the real insecurity or the question being asked of it all is, what am I facing? Not me. I'm saying as a young adult, 2022, February, Ukraine's been invaded, all these other possibilities of things going sideways. What am I facing? Isn't that the real question? What am I facing? How long am I here? How much pain? How much pain could I be facing? Not just for me, but the people that I care most about. Isn't that the real question? If you simplify it, how much pain will I have to endure? How much will the people that I care most about? Will they be harmed? Will they, it's the real question. It's some of where a lot of the angst and the anxiety comes from. What will I have to endure? And somewhere I think beyond that is what's next? What's next? What's after this? A lot of young people more and more will tell you nothing. If angst or insecurity, uncertainty, brings one to question the soundness of what you espouse during times of relative peace and prosperity. If it calls you to question that, how sound is my doctrine, my resolve, my vision, my views on the world and religion and politics and society? How sound is it when things are maybe about to get crazy? How sound is it? Those things that I cling to in times of relative peace and prosperity. And it's not necessarily a bad thing if it causes you to question that. It's not even a bad thing for us. I believe our own convictions, brethren, come under tighter scrutiny when we see things like we've seen this week, when we see greater potential for calamity and chaos. I think we examine our own selves, and we're at that time of year, right? We're marching right towards Passover and the days of unleavened bread. And even in times of relative peace and prosperity, we have to evaluate, don't we? But when we see things like we've seen this week, and again, I don't know where this is going or what it's going to amount to. I don't know if any of us can say for sure. But we know, I think we can agree that it's setting a stage. It's another paver, right? At one point, and this was early, when I first started hearing that, it's probably Thursday morning. No, it was Wednesday, late Wednesday, I guess, when it started. But it was Thursday morning, probably when I got home from driving the bus and turned the news on, because I watched a little bit of it Wednesday night, but I thought, well, it's not gonna be over tonight. And you say a prayer and you wake up the next day and start your day, and then as soon as you get a chance, you try to figure out what's happened. So this was the early goings of this invasion or the attack, and you're listening to all the pundits, and you're listening to the possibilities, and they're discussing things like how far Russia will go and what our response is going to be and what's going to be the response to our response. And you think, and there was even at one point talking about, well, China's looking and they're going to take advantage of this situation, and they may do the same thing to Taiwan, since Putin's got everybody's eyes on, and I don't know, it hasn't happened yet. Maybe that's not as much of a possibility. I don't know. But, you're listening to all those things, and, what's the result going to be? And you hearing about things like worldwide cyber attacks and infrastructure vulnerabilities and all these different things, and your mind runs that out a little ways. And you start thinking, like I said, the angst and the insecurities are, what am I facing? Is this going to come to our shores? Is it going to whatever? So you play it out a little bit so you can just Kind of get your head around it, right? We all do it. You see how it could get sideways in a pretty short order. So again, angst, insecurity, not so much for me, but you realize if I'm seeing this, where would I be if I didn't have some of the understanding, and I don't understand it all? But how much more insecure, how much more worried would I be? So you do see that. And then you think, well, panic creates self-destruction. I've told you the story many times about an insurance adjuster being in, I think it was Charleston, after one of the hurricanes, Hurricane Hugo, because that's been that long ago. And talking about how people were about to kill each other when a truck came in after 2 or 3 days without power and refrigeration and that kind of stuff, and a truck comes in with ice and people are, ready to cut each other's throats over a bag of ice. So, cyber attack. Something breaks down the grids, electric grids or whatever. You go to the ATM or whatever, you can't get money. All these things, what happens when there's no electricity? Lots of stuff. So you know that, panic would be what made us implode probably. But then your senses show up. You play this out a little bit, you play out these scenarios, but then your senses show up and you think, it's times such as these. It's times such as these. It's what we're training for. The old phrase, the cooler heads prevail, right? The cooler heads prevail. And you don't panic. Not that you don't care, not that you don't have feelings and emotions about it, but cooler heads prevail. You think about the song, this little simple song, This Little Light of Mine. This little light of mine. It is a little light, maybe. And we talk about that. Maybe our light's not bright enough. Maybe we're not doing enough. Maybe we're not witnessing enough. Maybe we're not trying to pull enough people in. So this little light of mine, but that little light may not be so noticeable in broad daylight. But as dusk and twilight and dark approach and advance, the real truth is you become more visible from farther and farther away. Cooler heads. Someone who isn't panicking. Isn't it wonderful? It is wonderful, brethren. We are blessed. Calm in the storm is the call. We know that. John 15:15. No surprises, right? Henceforth, John 15, verse 15, henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant doesn't know what his Lord does. And do not think that I'm saying for 1 second, and I've already said it, that this has been caused. But things do happen. And the best thing that we can do is to learn and to grow from them, right? For the servant doesn't know what his Lord does, but I have called you friends. The call is calm in the storm. I've called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father I have made known to you. No matter how this plays out, there's no surprises, right? We're not surprised by anything. And you can expect almost anything. I even got the question this week. I got a text, and I won't say who it was. Doesn't matter. And it's probably the same morning where I was hearing all these things about, possibilities, things that could happen, and where we're vulnerable, and how bad it could get, or how crazy, And I got a text. Is this the 4 horsemen? Is this the 4 horsemen? Is this what? It's crazy. And no, I didn't answer it exactly that way. But I can't say, brethren, but me personally, I don't think this is the catapult, or it's exactly, I believe it's exactly what I have said. It's a setting the stage. It's a paver. It's not the 4 horsemen. It may not be. But I can almost hear saddles being cinched. It's not 2028, but it's dang getting close. And that's not a date setting thing, and I'm just aggravating Chris a little bit, but it makes sense, brethren, and it's we are to learn. We're to be taking notes, and we are to be preparing our hearts and minds. It's a paving. It's the road to where we want to be. It's the road to where we say that we want to be. Because, what did you say this had? 2,800 pages? Or But I don't think anywhere in there, in those 28, all these 66 books of the Bible, and you can scour them, and you're not going to see anywhere where it promises you an easy road. Oh, it's smooth sailing. It promises you that it can be smoother because of where your trust and your hope is. But it's bumpy. It's bumpy. And we've been across some bumps this week, and I say that in all respect for those families that are hidden in subway tunnels, and people that have lost loved ones, and people that don't know what the next minute or the next day looks like. We're blessed for now. And I think God has the ability to continue blessing us no matter what situation we find ourselves in. And we have to have that mindset. No one promised an easy road or that it would be without pain. Nowhere that I can read. You can show it to me if you desire. We sing praises, and what a blessedness, what a peace is mine, what a peace is yours. And that's not because everything's smooth sailing. It's from the inside out. Because you know, and you believe. And when these things begin to come to pass, that's what attracted me this morning, is that passage in Luke 21:28. And it means a little more, if that's possible, today than it did yesterday, or before this week, I guess. It doesn't say when these things have passed, and when you understand it, it says when these things begin to come to pass. Then look up. When they begin, do we know if they have begun? Do we know that they haven't? When these things begin to come to pass, then look up and do what? Be lifted. Be lifted. Be blessed. Be encouraged. When these things begin to come to pass, look up and lift up your heads. Why? Because your redemption draweth nigh. Hallelujah! Now, if I'm hiding out, holding my grandbabies in a subway tunnel, and wondering when that boom is going to get closer, hallelujahs are harder to come by, maybe. But brethren, we have to learn, and we have to take notes, so that we can, if we were to ever find ourselves in such grave circumstances, to lift up our heads and rejoice because our redemption draws nigh. Because you know what? Whether this is Armageddon or not depends on where you are. Sitting here in these seats at 345 Nixon Road, maybe it looks a lot better. No, it absolutely looks a lot better than it does if there's bombs or a tank drives through the side of the wall right here. Does it matter where we are in the timeline? Because our situation's the same. It's always the same. Your world is your 20-foot radius, right? And it may matter to the people that survive. It may matter to me. Well, what does this mean? How am I going to know when I get to this point in Revelation? If there's a tank driving through the wall, it's now. For you and for me, right? You're driving down the road and here comes some maniac in a however many ton tank and drives over top of you. Who saw that coming? Does this woman get pulled out of her car and look through her Bible and say, where does this at in Revelation? And I'm not trying to be funny. Brethren, we have to pay attention, and I know that we are. I know I'm preaching to the choir. But we take stock, don't we? We're watching, we're getting schooled on how quickly things can get upside down, not just sideways. And when you see these things begin to come to pass, then look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Luke 21:28. Be encouraged, brethren, because you were born for times such as these. Coach Wilkes.